They even gave me a hug. We're like crying at closing.
Wow.
And buyer
Easy
was super
feeling.
stoked. Yeah, it was awesome. And it's like I think wholesalers get a bad rap because you only hear of the bad situations, right? Like leaving
Right.
grandma at the closing table and all this kind of stuff. But it's like we really do provide a service for these people that don't know what else to do with these houses. And so if we can get them what they need, provide value to the buyers on the other side, which are there in turn going to create housing for other folks to live in, like it's a beautiful, like symbiotic relationship.
And then once
Yeah.
you do get that deal, it's like your confidence level just shoots up to another level, and you're
Dude,
like,
there's nothing
okay.
like it. Yeah, dude, it's total deal junkie now because that feeling, like I will never forget that first deal we closed. And it was like for pennies, right? I think me and my partner split 3 grand.
Yeah.
Like for all this work for a couple $1,000s, like if I like reverse engineered on the amount of hours I spent to get that done, I'm making less than $1 an hour. But it was like we finally did it. Like we finally broke through and this is real. The proof of concept is like legit. We can do this too. It was the next deal, the immediate next deal, we made 49,000. And it was like
Fantastic.
that was still our biggest assignment to date. And it was the easiest deal I've ever done. It was just the right time, right place. Like we served those sellers really well.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. Dreams start own the path to own your time. I'm your host, Edgar the Connector, with guest today, Adam Colburn from Raleigh, North Carolina. How are you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Been a busy day.
For
Um,
sure. It's been a crazy Monday. I'm sure it's been same for you. It's been wild.
yeah, I had a podcast 11 hours ago,
Okay. Nice.
and then just W2 and no one left behind challenge.
Yeah.
I got thrown in as I was like 12th man on the bench, and they said, "Hey, our rainmaker ran away. Can you come join
Mm,
in?"
yeah.
And
Yeah, I think
everybody's
I'm
like,
on I think I'm on 15 different teams as a closer. It seems
"Oh
like
yeah."
I got blown up today. Yeah, my email is off the chain. Everybody reaching out. Hey, we need closers. We need closers. I was like, just send me leads. I'll call them. I don't care what market it is. Like, let's figure it out. So
What's
it's
funny is
been
I went to
wild.
the closers list, and your name's the first one on there because you're Adam with an A.
Yeah.
I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna have him on the podcast soon." So I'll talk
Nice.
to him. Were you on it the first go around?
I did one for the Prop AI challenge. So not
Okay.
this past month, I think the month prior, or maybe that was in September. And it was just a little too disorganized. I think they've kind of learned as they've gone to make it a little bit more streamlined where it was just communication was all over the place. And it was a similar situation where I don't think there's enough closers for the
Yeah.
amount of like newbies and folks that are generating leads. And so I didn't even know who I was talking to. They're just sending me stuff. And I'm like, all right, let's see if something pencils. I guess we'll figure it out on the back end. It's been a little bit better this time because I can just send them my calendar link and they can see when I'm available and I'll just jump on the calls and get rocking. So, but we'll see how this week goes. Hopefully we can close a lot of deals and get a lot of people their first deal over the finish line.
That sounds awesome. I'm doing they call us Rainmaker. I signed up for helper, but they changed the name.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna be running the LOI blaster. We had somebody just pull up the prop stream list that I have to import about 30
Yeah.
minutes ago.
Hmm.
But the thing is everybody on the team is new.
Got it.
The coach is new, the TC is new, everybody's been in sub two or the community less than 3 months. Most of them been
Wow.
less than a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then our coach didn't show up for a bit. So I was like, I just started leading. Look, from what I've heard, this and
Got
that, we're
to.
going to do this, this.
Yeah.
Like, I'll buy a Loy Blaster, but I already have Astro Blaster. So I got to make sure that if we don't get a deal, you guys are going to split.
Hmm.
So, but somebody goes, I plan to get it. So I'll go ahead and buy it. It's like, sweet.
Nice.
So he's
Yeah.
got it. And then we're trying to figure out splits. So that's one reason I actually emailed you. Is like, hey, what are you guys splitting as the closer? I assume the
Mm.
closer can get a larger portion.
Yeah. Yeah, I typically, because we've done this in the past, right? And so, and just with other folks when we're JVing, if I'm typically when I'm acquisitions, I'll take 30% of the cut. And then when in this situation, Rainmaker, they're obviously spending the money on the LOIs. They get 30 as well. So then it's like 30, 30, 40 for the rest of the team. And
Okay.
then if I'm the one that does the dispo as well, either me or the Rainmaker, because it seems like those are the two that have a little bit more experience, we'll add that additional 10%. So then it becomes like a 70-30 split. Um, I feel like that's fair. Because I know for me, when I was first starting, just to see a deal get done, didn't even need to make any money. It was just kind of seeing how the sauce was made, um, was huge and like very valuable to me as I was getting going. And so I don't think people are getting too broken up about the splits. And obviously, I'm not trying to take everything, right? But I'm having to put the time in and put my skills to the test. I need to get compensated in some way, and I feel like that's a fair split for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I told everybody, go, hey, let's say 40% on the side just in case.
Yeah.
If they say 30, then we got 10% to split between everybody else. But we're still
Hmm.
trying to figure that out because we have 18 people in our Slack group, but only 11 showed up.
Mm.
So, so I don't know. That's the other thing. So, okay, for sure that this guy's going to get money. The LOL Blaster guy is going to get some money because they're doing the work in the leads.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, we went into a No One Left Behind Challenge podcast, but it's good to know because I'm on this
For sure.
team.
Yeah.
So now we got to figure out is the coach is going to be kind of directing us, but again, she's new. The
Hmm.
TC, they're going to do their portion. So yeah, they'll get their credit. Now the
Yeah.
thing is, all the freshmen, the people setting the calls, are we going to give all of them a break or do we
Right.
just give it to the one that actually set the appointment? So we got to
Yeah.
discuss that, figure that out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I use a lot of newer students or people in the free group to call for me, like setting appointments like this, but more on a cold calling situation. Like I'll send them a list and they'll set the appointment, and then I've got 40 or 50 of them across the country that are doing that for me. And then
Awesome.
when they tag it into my calendar, then obviously it has their name, so I know who's accounted for it, and then I just pay them a high commission on the back end when we get the deal done. Um, so it's tough when you have multiple people calling to set appointments for you. Yeah, to see what's fair. But I mean, just that taking the action and learning, I feel like is valuable. Obviously, everybody always wants to make money in this game, but just learning what to do, right? Like you're kind of it's on the job training. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Proof of concept as well. This is
for
big
sure.
once you see it done,
Yeah,
being there. It's great.
totally.
Okay, cool. So starting with the dream part of the podcast is what made you start dreaming about real estate or
Yeah, so
entrepreneurship, either or.
for sure. Yeah. So I mean for me, um entrepreneurship's kind of been in my DNA. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs my whole life. My mom was big into like multi-level marketing. She worked for a company called Premier Designs. It was like a fashion jewelry situation based out of Texas. She became like top 10 in the nation. And so did that for close to 20 years. And then my dad's done all kinds of stuff. Like he used to sell law journals, like when you see on commercials, and he's done like roofing, flooring, all kinds of different sales positions. Um, and then owning his own businesses as well, like in the photography space, shooting a lot of listings for realtors and stuff like that. And so I've kind of been I guess it's just in my blood. But I didn't really take hold of it until after my wife and I started having kids. Like there was some instances, like in high school, I was big into skateboarding and obviously didn't make a ton of money, and I'm breaking skateboards all the time. So I would go and buy like 10 on eBay and then just sling them to all my friends to basically cover the cost of my 5 boards that I wanted to keep. And so it wasn't more so making money, just making sure that I could have the things that I wanted. But
Same. Not skateboards,
yeah,
but I did it with consoles. Like anytime a new console
okay.
came out, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Right. So like easy you see a small goal to attain and then we'll just go hustle to get to that thing, but then that was kind of where it stopped. So it wasn't until about 3 years ago. I have 3 kids now, but my daughter, she's the middle child. She was about 2 months old. I was just sitting on the couch. It's like 2 in the morning. I'm a super late person, night owl kind of
Me
guy.
too, man. Me too.
Um, and so I been working at this pharmaceutical company doing like specialty HVAC work, maintenance stuff, and easy enough job, like make decent money, but there wasn't much of like a ladder to climb as far as like a career. And
Yeah.
so I've got like two or three maybe like progressions within this department, and then I'm capped out forever. And so all my
Right.
coworkers were there for 20, 30 years. They're all tapped. We're doing the same work every day, and then they're just running back to their computers and watching cat videos on Facebook and staring at their 401ks waiting to retire. And I'm like, dude, I want so much more for myself, for my family, build that legacy for them. And so I'm just like, what can I do to build that life that my family deserves? like something additional on top of this income stream. And so I was a professional photographer for about 10 years, did a lot of weddings and engagements and stuff like that. And more on the side, never full time, but it was decent income. And then like we could jump back into that, but I want to see my family more, not less. And all of the high paying jobs are on the weekends, right? Like shooting weddings on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
Then I got to go back to the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And we're just like, yeah, that would get us like a little bit of a pay bump, but the time away from my family wasn't worth the extra money I was making. And so I tried all the different side hustles under the sun, like Googling on YouTube, like quickest way to make money or easy side hustles for little capital and all that stuff. And so we tried like print on demand t-shirt company, Amazon drop shipping, try to do some day trading, like all this kind of stuff. And it just some like minor successes, but anything major, like really moving the needle. And I'm spending so much time trying to figure all these things out. And it's like the shiny object syndrome of like what is going to be the easy button that kind of gets me to that next level. And this went on for like 3 or 4 months. Like try something for a month, it might work, but it's not enough. Then let's try
Mhm.
something else and just figuring it out, kind of running all over the place. And it was late at night, like everybody was asleep. Probably watched every single video for this like side hustle or quick cash kind of deal, except for this last one, and it was a Jerry Norton video that was basically like I think the title was how I flipped this piece of paper and made $40,000. And I was like, "What? There's no way." And but I wouldn't say desperate, but I was like curious enough to find something that's going to work for me. And I was like, it's 15 minutes, what who cares? Like, let's watch it. And so that was my first introduction into wholesaling and blew my mind. And I still was
Yes.
like,
Same.
there's no way that this is real, dude. Like this guy just went out, put this property under contract, found somebody else to buy it. He made 40 grand and he has virtually no risk. Like this is crazy. And so I still didn't believe it. I was like, this has to be some sort of funnel, like to get you to buy a course that doesn't work and all this stuff. And so I started researching super heavy on Facebook, like just looking up all these other groups and wholesaling groups and real estate investing, all this stuff, and trying to find somebody local to me to just like show me actual proof that this is real, not just some guy on YouTube. And so one of my first mentors, his name's Ted. He was a paralegal for 5 years and then jumped into wholesaling. And he actually started in New York, which is like one of the toughest states to do it in, right? And so he ended up moving down here to Raleigh, and we started having a conversation back and forth. And I was like, dude, yeah, I'm really interested in this whole wholesaling thing, but I don't think that this is real. Like this kind of money doesn't make sense. And I was like, can you show me a receipt? I didn't even know what a HUD was or a closing
Right.
statement. I called it a receipt. And I was like, can you show me a receipt on where you actually made money doing this? And he's like, yeah, bro, for sure. And he's like, I just sold this infill lot. Again, didn't know what that meant, but he's like, I sold this lot in Garner, which is a town like 15 minutes away. I sold it last month. I made 25 grand. Here's the receipt. Like making fun of me. And but I was like, holy crap, okay, I'm actually like looking at this dude in the face and he's telling me he made this money. Like this has to be real. And then that's kind of I just dove off the deep end and started consuming content like no other, like every YouTube video, every podcast, any kind of book I could get my hands on, just nothing but real estate investing, right? To try to figure out how to get this going. And so it took a while to figure it out because there's so much that I just didn't know what I didn't know, right? Like
Right.
I had some real estate experience per se from my photography background. I shot a lot of listings for a couple
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of flippers here that are now my buyers, funny enough. But they do super high volume, like 100 to 150 houses a year. And I shot
Wow.
all their listings for several years. And so I'd always been interested in flipping, but didn't know how I could get the money, how these guys find these deals, all this stuff. And I think just from a mindset perspective, I wasn't ready because this is probably 5, 6 years ago. And but I start learning about this whole underbelly, if you want to call it that, this whole different world of real estate that it was like right under my nose, but I didn't know that it existed until now. And so we just started on my lunch breaks at work. I started banging the phones and started making phone calls. And I would back then I would very much consider myself like more of an introverted person. Like I'm not gonna avoid you. Like if you came up to me to talk to me, I'll have a conversation, but I'm not gonna be the one that like is outgoing to go and meet you. And so for the first like week, just picking up that phone, it was 500 pounds, right? And I would call these sellers. and would like have a sigh of relief if it went to voicemail. And then somebody would finally pick up and I would hang up before I could even respond because I was like so terrified of what they were going to say.
We lie to ourselves at that time too. Oh, I made calls, I made calls today,
Oh
but
yeah,
we're just
for
barely
sure.
scratching the surface. And
1,000%. Or the creative avoidance. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna hit the phones for 3 hours, but let me watch this YouTube video again real quick. And let me go mess with the CRM, even though I have no leads. Like, let me go mess with this and just waste all this time instead of taking action. And so it took a little bit, but I finally got the courage up and started building that muscle, getting kicked in the teeth a little bit. And we're like, well, okay, they called me a bad name, but I'm still here. Nobody's hurt. It's all good. And then just move on to the next one. And so that was like getting to my first deal was probably 6 or 7 months of just grinding, like getting
wow,
houses under contract, but locked them up too high, or the buyer ghosts me for some reason, seller lies about something, like all the things that people deal with. But I'm grateful that it took that long because it made me build that thick skin, that resilience, and kind of grit to keep going after it, to know that like when those wins come, that's why we're working so hard, right? Like it's not
yeah,
all butterflies and rainbows like Instagram can show sometimes. Like call three
I have a
people and now
good
you bought a
balance.
Lambo. Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
It
gotta
was
have a
like
good
I
balance.
had proper expectations because it was so difficult. But then it was like once we got that first deal, kind of the floodgates opened and we just started getting some momentum and started closing deals a little bit more consistently. I met a guy actually in the free group before I joined Sub 2, and we started teaming up. He's more of an integrator. He was a CPA by trade, so he had a little bit more money than time. And so he would fund our marketing. I was the guy on the phones. I'd lock up the deals and sell them, and we would just split the profits. And that was a great relationship. And we're both family guys, like hockey, like it was just our goals aligned really well, and so we stuck with it. And then we started cherry picking flips, and that just kind of started snowballing. So now we're running like 2 to 4 flips at a time here in North Carolina, and then started picking up rentals. And now our main focus is like the sober living model for our long-term holds. Yeah, man, it's been a wild ride, but it was really that 2 a.m. like YouTube video is what sparked it for me, like seeing the possibilities that real estate could provide that nothing else could come close to.
Right. Yeah. Also seeing that wholesale when I first learned about that, I was like just mind blown.
Yeah,
It's like just having that piece of paper with the signature that says one number, but you get somebody
right.
else that says, we'll give you a little bit more than that number.
Yeah,
Boom. There you
it's
go.
crazy.
Money. And
Yeah.
it's just a couple of phone calls, man. I worked in the plants and the rain and the heat and the
Hmm.
straight sun beating down, carrying big old harnesses and bags of
Yeah.
freaking tools. And dude, being on the phone, picking up the 500
Right.
pound phone that gets lighter and lighter little by little.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then once
Yeah.
you do get that deal, it's like your confidence level just shoots up to another level. And you're
Dude,
like,
there's nothing like it. Yeah, dude, it's total deal junkie now because that feeling, like I will never forget that first deal we closed. And it was like for pennies, right? I think me and my partner split 3 grand.
yeah,
Like for all this work for a couple $1,000s, like if I like reverse engineered on the amount of hours I spent to get that done, I'm making less than $1 an hour. But it was like we finally did it. Like we finally broke through, and this is real. The proof of concept is like legit. We can do this too. And but then like I think either it was the next deal, the immediate next deal, or one after that, we made 49,000. And it was
badass,
like
dude.
that was still our biggest assignment to date, and it was the easiest deal I've ever done. It was just a right time, right place. Like we served those sellers really well. They even gave me a hug. We're like crying at closing,
Wow.
and buyer
What a good
was super
feeling.
stoked. Yeah, it was awesome. And it's like I think wholesalers get a bad rap because you only hear of the bad situations, right? Like leaving
Right.
grandma at the closing table and all this kind of stuff. But it's like we really do provide a service for these people that don't know what else to do with these houses. And so if we can get them what they need, provide value to the buyers on the other side, which are there in turn going to create housing for other folks to live in, like it's a beautiful like symbiotic relationship. And so yeah, that was really cool. And so it was all it made it all worth it, right? To know that those kind of wins are right there if you just keep digging and find the problems to solve.
Wow. Was that also local in the North Carolina area?
It was, yeah. It was actually like 2 streets down from our first flip. So like we cherry picked a flip from a lead that we chased for like a year, and the guy was finally ready to go, and it was perfect timing. This was back in 22 when the rates were low and the prices were climbing like crazy.
Yeah.
So the number that he wanted like 6 months ago that was too high now was a great deal. And we were able to take it down, and then this other lead came up and I was right up the street. We went and looked at it and it was a slam dunk. But at that time, I just didn't have the financing in place to take it down myself and just the guaranteed cash from the wholesale deal rather than the potential cash on the flip, right? And that whole cash conversion cycle is a little bit slower. So we took it and run, and it was one of the guys that I used to take all the pictures of his listings. Like he was the first guy I texted, and he was like, "Yep, I want it. Like we're done. We'll close in 5 days." I was like, "Okay, let's go."
Dang,
Like it
freaking
was
awesome,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, it was
Congrats
great.
on that.
Thanks, man.
I think one of the mindset things that a lot of us, or even people just starting, right? Once they start, like you said, you grinded for what you said 7 months about before you got
Yeah.
your first deal.
Hmm.
If you stop there and think, okay, I made 3,000, it took me 7 months, you're like, man, this isn't worth it. But what that actually unlocks is how much you're going to make afterwards. So
Right.
all that planning and working and grinding is going to unlock so much more once you do break through that barrier and get your first deal.
For sure.
Kind of like that, what they talked about, the Chinese bamboo. You plant the
Yeah.
seed, it takes 5 years of roots growing down before that 5 years, that fifth year,
Hmm.
the seed finally sprouts and shoots up 90 feet in 5 weeks. It's just
Yeah, it's
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy for anyone that's trying to build a business. And from the outsider's perspective looking in, it's like, dude, this guy's nuts. Like he's wasting all his time. Like there's no way this is real. I mean, my wife dealt with that, right? She was kind of a naysayer when I first started because she's like, dude, you're spending all this time running to these random houses and meeting with these weird people. I don't know what you're doing. And but we're not seeing any fruit of it, right? And I was like, trust me, I know it's real. I've seen too many people do it. Like it was more like borrowed belief, right? Like it's like if these guys can do it, I know I can too. I don't know why we haven't yet, but we just got to keep at it. And that big check I was able to bring home and kind of put on the kitchen table and just walk away and let her realize it was there. And she's like, "Oh, okay. Now I get it." So it was like big validation for that too. It's like I'm not doing this just to do it, right? Like I know that this is a proven path to for us to grow and scale and kind of buy that time back and build that legacy that we want. But you just got to put in the work, and are you willing to? And I definitely am. So
Dude, awesome, awesome story. You said that was in 2021?
yeah,
Cool. And you're still doing your W-2 as well as
yeah. For now, so we've been transitioning into flips and doing more flips rather than wholesales. We still do a handful of them, right? And so um, we're also taking our flips down a little differently. Now we're doing more like subtails or novations without the risk, right? Where we're actually closing on these houses sub two and flipping them. That's 3 to 5x our profit margins on our flips. And so I can go after nicer assets using the same amount of capital that I would have to for like the traditional first time home buyers kind of price point house in our market. And so we just started implementing that about a year ago. And we actually have a flip closing tomorrow, and then we're buying our next one the same day. And so there's been some bumps along the road this year that I would have exited already. Some bad partnerships, some stuff that just went wrong, right? Like just business is business. It's not going to be
right?
perfect all the time. And so the light is at the end of the tunnel. I'll be out soon, probably when this next flip closes, maybe by the end of the year. We'll see. Because it's at the point now where I am the biggest bottleneck in our business because of my W-2. And I get more flexibility than a lot of other folks just for the nature of my work because it is in maintenance. Like if things aren't broken, there's nothing to fix. And so rather than go and look at my 401k all day like my coworkers, I'm outside slinging deals and making things happen. And so I can do some damage on the phones, but there's a lot, especially in our market here in North Carolina, these tired landlords that we do a lot of business with, like they're super old school. They want to look you in the eye, shake your hand before they'll do business. And so trying to coordinate that um, outside of my day job hours where I can still be a present and active father and husband is a challenge. And so once I get that time freed up throughout the day that I can go and do those kind of things, I think we're just going to launch to the stratosphere. And so we're close, but I'm just trying to be responsible for the wife and the kids, make sure that we have a nice nest egg. And even if something went crazy and we didn't close a deal for like a whole quarter, like everybody's fed, bills are paid, nobody's stressed out here, like it's all good. And so try to do it responsibly. And so we're close, but still at the W-2 for now.
Yeah. That's good to know that you're not stressing out though. That you're doing it and you're making progress and
Yeah.
it's being successful and you're going to get to the point where you'll be able to say, Bye bye, W-2.
For sure. Cannot wait. It gets tougher every day, believe me.
Back in 23, I worked construction, industrial construction. I was a planner. So we
Yeah.
work ourselves out of a job because it's a contract. So as soon as we
Right.
build the plant, we're gone.
Yeah.
So my time was coming. I got laid off and had just come back from a conference. And I was like, dude, I quit my job and focus on just real estate. And I did
Nice.
it for 2 months, just getting the deal going. But then I got recruited and got some
Mm.
nice golden handcuffs. So I was like, oh man, it's
It's real, man.
the job just over broke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was like, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. I think if it's something you really enjoy and it doesn't take a ton of your time, you can still build this business if you want to, right? It's more fits into your lifestyle. Then a W-2 can be a superpower for a lot of people,
Yeah,
especially these high income earners that are bankable, can get really good rates or lines of credit and stuff like that. Like that is a huge asset to other folks, especially when you go full time, you kind of lose all that access to traditional banking, which we're not using very often, like being within sub two community and focusing on creative finance is not a big deal. But just to have that other layer of like opportunity for you, I think it's great. But in my position, right, like it's hindering me more than helping me at this
right.
point. And
Because you're the
so,
closer.
right, exactly. Got
Yeah.
more deals to close than I have time to work on air systems and compressed airlines and stuff at this pharma plant.
Got to negotiate some extra PTO.
Dude, I've burned it up like crazy. Let me tell you. Oh yeah. Well, I'll pull extra hours just to make up for all the time that I leave to go walk houses and go to meetups and stuff like that. So like we've kind of know how to do the dance, but it's a challenge for sure trying to balance everything.
That's cool, man. I'm happy for you. When you first started, I guess what were your systems? You would just call them from your phone and you'd pull what foreclosure leads?
Yeah, so I've always used PropStream. I've tried all the other softwares and I always come back to that one. And so we would try pre-foreclosures, but the data is never super accurate on PropStream for pre-foreclosures. So I would just do like vacant absentee or absentee out of state that they've owned it for 10 years or longer and had at least 50% equity. And I like to specifically niche down to not focus on LLCs, like people that own
Mhm.
them in their personal name. So like the true tired landlord.
Right.
These are the guys that are getting the calls about a running toilet at 2 in the morning and all that kind of stuff. And so I would just pull that list and call on my phone just using like a Google Voice app. So it wasn't my personal number. I had some sort of alias, but didn't have a dial or anything. And I'm just smiling and dialing in the car on my lunch break. And then which started to extend into more of my day and more of my day and more of my day. And so any free time that I had outside of like my scheduled work, I'm out there on the phones just making things happen. And so um would call through probably 30 or 40 a day and then maybe have five or six good conversations and then nurture those and just kind of work it. And if I ran into an issue or didn't know how to comp a house or something, I'd lean on guys like Ted or some other OG sub two students that I started to meet even before I joined the community because there's a lot of us here in North Carolina. It's just to help and see if they could help me dispo deal if I got something. And yeah, we just kind of failed forward for a while and then we finally got that one done and then it was just like the snowball rolling down the hill.
So many good nuggets there. I don't know which way to go. I guess I'm gonna start with you weren't in any groups. You didn't have any software besides PropStream. You didn't have a dialer, so you don't need to join a community to get started. You don't need
No.
to buy a lot of things to get started. PropStream was something that helped out to benefit you to save you time on
Yep.
getting lists to call.
Hmm.
And then you said somebody that talked to you about wholesale was the infill lot. What is the
Yeah.
infill lot? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so infill lot is in like an established neighborhood, right? Like a new build from like let's say 2013, and you can have a house, vacant lot, house. That vacant lot within the neighborhood is called a infill lot. And
Okay.
so this guy went and locked that piece of property up under contract and then sold it to a developer who was going to build a house there.
Okay. Nice. We got a couple of those around here. I haven't looked into those. That'll be I'm gonna start walking for dollars. Walking my
Yeah,
dog for
dude. I
dollars
mean,
now that it's cooler.
land is a great opportunity. We've been picking up a lot more land leads in the last year or so, and we're actually working on a couple of really big parcels right now, learning the entitlement process and working with these builders. And there's some huge opportunities in land, and I think a lot of people sleep on it. Um, but I mean, massive returns as well. Like, some of these entitlements, like the minimum you're going to make is $500,000.
Wow.
Like it's crazy numbers. And obviously it's a whole new skill set, right? Like comping land is different. Your buyers are different. They're more savvy. You're typically selling to the big DR Hortons and Meritage Homes of the world, and knowing how to talk to those people is a little bit different than just a regular old house flipper or even just a homeowner. Um, but I think there's a ton of opportunity in land, and there's a lot less competition in land. And so we're trying to pick up a little bit more steam in that regard and focus on land outside of just our houses. That's been like our bread and butter since we started.
Okay. Yeah, I have a old coworker that's got 14 acres of land that's zoned as commercial mixed use
Nice.
that I need to find out. I need to find a buyer for.
Yeah.
It's almost
Yeah.
14 acres and it's right next to an airport, a small airport in Baytown, right outside of Houston.
Nice. Dude, I'm sure that stuff is worth a ton of money.
Yeah, he goes, "I'll give you 6%." I was like, what I pay an agent, I'll give it to you.
I
I
love
was
it.
like, cool. So I want to try to do like one of the Paces deal where he sold
Yeah.
the land and got some equity.
Heck yeah.
Mm.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I gotta find the right person.
Love it.
How long ago did you join Sub 2?
So I officially joined in May of last year. So like right at a year and a half. But I like to say I've been sub two adjacent for about 3 years. Jerry Norton was like my gateway drug into wholesaling, which was cool. I got to tell him that at Squad Up Summit
Awesome.
when he was there. That was really cool. But it was probably a month or two in when I like really dove in and started learning stuff is when I found Pace and Jamil, like the whole wholesale hotline crew, Brent Daniels, and started networking super heavy in the free group. That's where I met my first business partner, and we're still doing deals today. And then eventually just made the jump and joined Sub Two about a year and a half ago, and now we're both in Owners Club as well. So it's been
Awesome.
crazy growth in the last year and a half for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I started following, I think, Pace in 2022. So I learned
Okay.
about them. So I
Hmm.
was in the free group for about 2 years, and then I wanted to learn about it. So I was already in another mentorship. I didn't want to pay for another one. So
Yeah.
I actually sold a townhouse that I have
Nice.
that I couldn't, that had HOA restrictions, so no
Hmm.
Airbnb. So I
Sure.
sold it to a sub two student above market and got a nice down payment and get $300 a month, 10-year balloon. So
Nice.
it's got like 9 years left waiting for them to mess up so I can do it again.
I love it.
But yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, thank you. Reverse engineer it to get the contract, to get the servicing company and the title. And they're like, okay, this is proof of concept. Now I can
Yeah.
say I've done a deal like this because I sold my personal property that way. So it gives
Sure.
you a little bit more credibility.
Totally. That's
Oh,
awesome.
appreciate it. Have you picked up any sub two properties?
Yeah, so we've got two in San Antonio
Oh,
that we
nice.
bought recently. We had one in Garner, North Carolina, that we ended up buying and then selling relatively quickly. Um, and then I've got a couple seller finance long-term rentals, and we're underwriting a couple more right now for our sober model up in Tennessee.
Nice. And what are you doing for those leads?
So for sub two specific,
Yeah.
it's pretty much like long days on market, low equity situations. So we're going direct to agent. The majority of my wholesale business is direct to seller. And those are typically just your traditional cash deals. We'll get some seller finance stuff or sub two stuff every once in a while, but if we're specifically looking for properties in those areas, we just go long days on market and give the agents a call, and it's typically an equity issue. And so that's where sub two makes the most sense for everybody.
Nice. I've been using Astro Blaster for direct to agent just to build
Nice.
relationships a little bit for wholesale, a little bit sub two.
Yeah.
I don't know if you met Luver. He's also in the Owners Club.
Yeah, I interviewed him while we were in when we were in Boston. Great
That's
guy.
right. I actually have your podcast on my playlist for
Nice.
that to watch it.
Love
Yeah,
it.
him and I are signed in the middle of doing a Morby method deal that
Okay.
I got from a direct agent. She brought it direct agent. She brought it to me, and we're just waiting for the closing to take place for the documentation, doing a DCR loan on it. Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, Morbies are kind of, I don't know, I've just never ran into a situation where I needed to do one. But I know they're a great strategy when the seller wants a big down payment. So I mean, anything to get creative and get the deal done, I love it. And I know Leover's doing a ton of those, so that's
yeah,
awesome.
that's exactly why I took it to them. So this situation
Yeah.
is, it's a flipper.
Hmm.
They did a great job. The issue is the house is on a really busy street. So they've
Mm,
had buyers, but they've all backed out because the street's really busy. But
sure.
it's also a very popular part of Houston.
Hmm.
So they bought it at after they're all in about 560
Okay.
and they're selling it for 860.
Mm,
So they're a hard money loan. They're bleeding right now.
yeah.
So I pitched it as, hey, I'll give you 600 to pay off your hard money loan and give you a little bit in your pocket and let's seller finance the rest. They're like, okay, that sounds good. So we're getting 260 seller finance, 10 years,
Nice.
0% interest, pay
Yeah.
them with the mortgage method. And then if
Hmm.
everything comes out, we'll get a little bit of money and we're going to change it to co-living. So that's part of our Mount Everest is affordable housing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about yourself? You got a Mount Everest
Yeah,
house
no,
there?
mine is specific in the sober living, so still kind of in the affordable housing realm, but I want to provide safe and affordable housing for 1,250 people coming out of recovery centers, all while
Wow.
making $100,000 a month.
Wow. You should be able to make a lot more for 1,200 people. I guess it depends
Yeah,
the area.
well, and it's like I'm just kind of breaking it down, reverse engineering from the dollar amount. And it's not that I need that to live off of, right? That's just more impact that we can make in the communities if we're bringing in that kind of cash flow. But with our one house that we have online right now and a couple others in escrow, we can typically fit about 8 people in these homes,
Okay.
and they all split evenly the cost of living, right? So our one in Knoxville, I'm getting 3,100 bucks a month, 8 guys. It's just under $400 a piece. And we kind of walk down from our debt service. We're making about a little over 1,000 bucks a month on cash flow. And so if I reverse engineer that, I need about 108 houses, something like that, to fit it,
Okay.
and then multiply. That's kind of where we got the 1,250 number. So we have an attainable goal on how many houses I need to hit that income threshold. And so it's just finding the opportunities, finding the operators to run them, and make sure we're making a dent in that issue, right? Because addiction is not going anywhere anytime soon. And so if we can help the community out that way while also doing well for ourselves, killing two birds with one stone, and build those legacy assets that I can pass on to my kids and let them have that kind of step up that I didn't really have when we got started.
Yeah, man, that's an awesome reason to be doing that. Sober living, you have a couple already running?
So we got one that's been online for about 6 months now. We're going through a refi process on that one, and the goal is to build 4 more homes on the lot. So we'll basically have like a senior living or sober living rather compound within this neighborhood. So I can have 5 houses all running sober living model right there in the same spot. It's all close to a bus stop. The operator already knows how to manage the area, and there's a huge need in this market for people to have safe and affordable housing. And so if we can't find it, we're just going to build it. And so this will be our first foray into development, but it should be a fun experience. But I've got 2 others here in North Carolina that we have under contract. We haven't started them yet, but we've been working directly with the Oxford House, and so nationwide nonprofit. They kind of run the show, and they just rent the property from me, which is great for me because I don't really want to be involved in the management. I'd rather just bring the opportunity to the table, let somebody else run it, and then I could go focus on the other stuff, solving more problems, locking up more deals. Then we can just get the cash flow from that and roll into the next thing. And so just the one right now, but we're looking to acquire a lot and pretty aggressively for the rest of the year and into 2025.
Nice. Yeah, it's triggered a memory that we discussed this with Oxford House and you bought that
Hmm.
lot that was super needed in that area.
Yeah.
And Oxford House is asking, hey, when you can have the next one available, right?
Dude, it's like every other week they're giving me a call. Hey, can we get another house? Can we get another house? Now they're expanding their markets because it's a huge problem and they don't have enough people. And so it's that old adage, like if not you, then who? And so
Yeah.
I've taken it upon myself as like I never anticipated being the guy, the sober living guy for one, but then the sober living guy in Tennessee. But if nobody else wants to do it, I guess it'll be me.
Yeah. Kind of the same way it fell in my lap as well.
Yeah.
I'll explain in a little bit, but so you're doing just a lease on that? You're not doing like a profit split at all with Oxford House?
Correct, because they're nonprofit, I don't have to pay them anything. And
Okay.
so, which is great for me. And it kind of works out as like a triple net lease. They cover obviously all management fees. They have like an in-house manager that lives there with the guys,
Right.
and they cover utilities and they cover damages up to a certain dollar amount. So just like the somebody punches a hole in the wall, they have to cover it, not me. Obviously, if a roof leaks or lawn care and stuff like that, that's still on me as the owner. But it makes it pretty passive from a like a long-term perspective, a heck of a lot more than my normal LTRs that we have. with
Right.
management companies constantly getting hit up for stuff. And so that's why I like it that way because obviously we can make an impact in the community, but it's a lot more passive and I'm less involved. And so that was just the easy route to go with Oxford, especially because they're the largest nonprofit in the country doing this model. So it's just a 2-year lease and then we'll have the opportunity to re-sign. Or I know some guys that are doing longer leases with built-in increases, like every other year, you can bump the rent up. And so we might do that on the next one. And so yeah, it just made it a much smoother process for me to work with them with that operator because they were ready to go. I didn't need to reinvent the wheel. Somebody could take it and just kind of run with it, and I can just sit in the landlord seat and collect the checks.
Awesome. How'd you figure out about who to contact when you decided to go the sober living route?
It kind of just fell into my lap looking back into the sub 2 Zoom vault that sober was even possible. I originally wanted to do an Airbnb on this house because it's only 5 minutes away from the University of Tennessee, big football school. There's a huge house that had an unfinished basement, like, and all the, I guess, competing Airbnbs in the area were these tiny little bungalows. And so I was like, well, this could be the total man cave. We're going to put a bowling alley in it, like make it a huge experience. And I found out that Knox County, where this house sits, is like super duper strict on Airbnbs,
Mm,
especially for out of state investors. And so it kind of squashed my dreams on that house. And so we're trying to figure out what's going to actually make sense as far as an exit strategy. And nothing else really penciled. And so, like, long term didn't work, midterm, there wasn't really an option because the house was too large. Um, and then I didn't really want to flip remotely, and it's not a super great flip market either. And so just going through the Zoom vault and then talking with some other buddies here locally, sober made sense. And I got a buddy, his name's Tom Illingworth out of Greensboro, North Carolina. He's also in sub two, and he has a handful of sober houses that he had used with the Oxford house. And so I just reached out and asked about his experience, and he said they've been great for me. Like, they pay on time and it's easy, and we're able to help these people out. And so I was like, cool. Do you know anybody in Tennessee? And he's like, I actually know the guy that's over the whole state, but I don't know where your house is. Like, but he should be like a good connection for you. And so I gave him a call and told them what I was looking for or what I had to bring to the table and if they had a specific need for it. And they just transferred me to the person over the Knoxville area. And they were super excited. And they're like, yeah, how soon can we go look at it? I was like, well, it's vacant. You can go look at it right now.
music to your
20,
ears.
literally 20 minutes later, they're calling me like, all right, great. When can we move in? And I'm like, we'll pump the brakes. One, I haven't even closed yet. And two, this needs a full renovation. It was a bank owned property and it was vacant for 2 years. So it had
Wow.
a ton of work that needed to be done. But they were like super excited because it was such a big need for them in that market to bring another house online. And so they've been great to deal with, really easy, really professional, and they love the house and I like them as tenants. And so we're going to try to bring as many as I can to that area, whether I acquire more creatively in the market or we'll just go and build them and kind of bring that compound model to life and can kind of copy and paste and do that in other markets too, that it's a little bit more difficult to acquire the homes.
Okay. So what are you looking for in the Tennessee area for more homes? If somebody's watching this and they say, hey, I got a deal for you, what do
Totally.
you want it to be?
Yeah, so for us, for sober, it needs to be a minimum of 4 beds and 2 baths. About 2,000 square foot is kind of the floor. Obviously, bigger is better for us. The biggest sticking point is that it needs to be close to public transportation because a
Hmm.
lot of the guys that are living in these homes don't have vehicles.
Right.
And so half a mile or less is kind of the determining factor if it's going to make sense for sober living. And then really like a C plus neighborhood or nicer. Obviously, we don't want to have drug dealer 3 houses down to people that are recovering addicts. It's not going to
Right.
work out. And so we want to be in a nice area where they're safe, they're secure from kind of falling back into that life. And so, but those are really the biggest things. Obviously, I want to acquire them creatively. So, I mean, 10 to 15% entry fee, I'm all about. Lower the rate, the better. But I mean, as long as it cash flows and we can get in there quickly, I can definitely be your buyer. Specifically in Knoxville, we're looking in Murfreesboro as well. And then just up and down the East Coast, right? Like, I'm in North Carolina. I've got some contacts in Georgia, some Florida. So, I mean, if you got a creative deal on the East Coast that's a little bit larger, that sober living might work, definitely hit me up.
Awesome. You specifically said for two with a 3-2 with like a double living room. You know, some of those houses have two living rooms work as well.
Potentially, yeah. So like the one thing I really like about sober living compared to like the pad split model is that I don't have to chop up the house to increase my density. And so it's really about the square footage of the room because every person is allotted a certain amount of square footage, like a minimum. And so I believe it's 60 square foot. So like in a traditional 12 by 12 bedroom, like where I'm sitting in right now, I could put two residents in here.
Right.
And so if I have a larger room, like you're talking about, like a bonus room or a flex space or something, I could put three or four guys in there. I don't have to add additional walls or do any additional renovations like I would with pad split, where you're limited to only one person per room. And so I like that. It just saves on our rehab costs. And so I mean there's some lines that are blurred, right? Like if it was a really big 3-2 and we could do something to add some additional bedrooms, I'd be open to it. Yeah, kind of 4-2 is like the floor for us, and anything up is obviously better. It just makes it easier to fit the guys in there.
Cool. You got some deals, man. Send it to them. You said it was bank owned. How did you get that property?
Yeah, so I've got a good buddy here. His name's Aaron. We've done a couple flips together, and he was calling just some random leads and ended up getting in touch with like a dispo manager at a bank, like a regional bank, and just was chatting with him. It was in an area that I normally would not do business in, like a very middle of nowhere spot in North Carolina. But basically, he's like, just jump on the phone and see. I mean, the numbers look like they make sense, but who knows? And this actually ended up being his first flip with us. Um, we had a conversation with his dispo manager, and he basically said, like, look, if you guys can make this a smooth transaction for us, I'll send you all of our inventory nationwide before we give it to a realtor. And I was like, okay. It's like, even if we take a bath on this flip, this could be a potential like $1 million relationship.
Heck yeah.
And so we went ahead, we did the house in the middle of nowhere, made a little bit of money. I think we ended up splitting like 30 grand between like four or five people. But it was good for them. They got their first flip under their belt, and then we built that relationship, right? We solidified that we could perform. And so that second property was this Knoxville house that we turned into sober that he sent us. And so he sent us a couple others along the way, but none of them have really penciled. And I think he got a little bit upset that we weren't just like
Buying everything.
blindly buying things. Yeah, like they still had to make sense. And so we're trying to kind of like nurture that relationship and stay in his good graces because I'm like, hey man, I mean, 2 out of 5 that you've sent me is not bad, right? That we closed on. You didn't have to deal with the headaches of the agents, but that's how we found it. And so that was the first like REO property that we had done. And I mean, it was pretty smooth, but it was slightly more challenging on the acquisition side because there was no creative option because obviously the bank's not gonna give me a sub 2 on a loan that they had to take over.
Right.
And so all of my private money was dried up on our flips that we were doing in North Carolina, and so we had to go the hard money route, which I don't really love doing, but we made it work, and that's why we're doing the refi right now, so we can move on into the development play. It worked out to be a great deal, and really happy that we did it for sure.
How's the refi numbers looking? You gonna take home a little bit?
I doubt it. It'll probably be more break even, but it's more just stabilizing the asset so we don't have to, we're running up against a timeline on a hard money loan or something like that. And
Right.
we ended up having to bring a gator in for some of the rehab. And so paying them back out and just moving on where we can take our focus off of the debt service on this house and focus on adding additional units, I think is going to be where we can really stabilize and start to grow there. So honestly, I'm not sure. I need to reach back out to our loan officer to see. It's been a really slow process for whatever reason, but we're making it work, and we should be closed with that in the next week or so. And then we can start going down the path and learning about development and putting new houses out there.
All right. Good luck on that one. So
Thanks, man.
your new units, you can add probably two more units in that same lot, right? What do you
Yeah,
need?
the goal is four. The property it sits on just over an acre, and it's zoned to hold up to 6 units per acre. And so I don't think realistically we can fit all six, but I think we can do five. And so if we can put four more homes, and I'm leaning more towards modular homes just for the speed and the cost effectiveness. We've got a couple guys, actually a guy in Owners Club that I'm working with right now who's got some connections to some modular builders that we can get the plans in place and start the permit process with the town so we can just get them up and running faster because I mean it's like 3 or 4 months from purchase to in the ground installed compared to going stick build. It's going to take me 8 to 12 months on one house. I can have all four in there in that time frame. And so I think it just, especially as a rental, it makes a ton of sense. And the quality of these modular homes is pretty insane these days. Like the technology's come a long way, and there you wouldn't know unless you were told that it was modular.
Right.
Yeah.
See that small little house that Elon lives in, the little folding box house?
Yeah, the boxables. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you checked
Yeah,
that
those are
out at all?
cool. I've looked into them, and I know April Elias, a fellow Owners Club member, she's got some connections to I believe it's like a competitor to Boxable. Called Fold'em. And so I've thought about it, like if we could buy like an infill lot and just kind of line the outskirts of the lot with those small individual units and basically make our own little mini subdivision for
Yeah.
affordable housing or something like that. I think that would be really cool. And so I haven't explored it too much, but I love the concept. I think it makes a ton of sense, and if we can keep the cost of build down, obviously we can keep the monthly expenses down as well, because affordability is one of the biggest problems in America right now. And so if we can help with that, that's what we want to do.
Awesome. How are you planning to fund the builds for the modular and the rest of the units?
Yeah. So a lot of the modular companies have in-house financing because they're still considered real property when they're affixed to the land. But in the eyes of the government from a purchase side, a lot of them are still considered vehicles. And so they've got their own loan products and stuff like that. So we're probably just going to go directly through one of the manufacturers that has in-house financing. The rates are pretty competitive. And if I can buy multiple at the same time, they're going to give us a pretty steep discount, like a wholesale price. And so I think that's probably the route that we're going to go.
Oh, cool. Good to know. And
Yeah.
then I guess if I assume if rates drop later on, you can always refinance them once they're installed and they're
Yeah.
harder to not consider not real property.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we need to see how we can work together. I'm looking for more sober livings as well in the Houston area. I have one in Pasadena. It's a bigger house, 3,700 square feet.
Hmm.
We have 11 people in there, and the room rates go anywhere from 600 for a shared room to 850 for a single room. Sorry, 650 for a shared room and 800 for a single room.
Okay. I love
So
that.
yeah, and I'll find some if later on you start getting funding for that, or if you find deals in the Houston area,
Sure.
let me know. So we'll see what we can do to make it work. HOA is not
Absolutely. Yep.
with this because they're protected. They're
Right.
protected class.
Yeah. That's one of the main reasons I love it too, right? Because these people need help. And so I'm glad that they are protected like that. So HOAs can't stop you from running your business just because you're trying to help people, you know?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, it's
I've
great.
been through all that. We did it to the HOA calling. We had the fire marshal called to our house.
Oh, wow.
They showed up and they thought we were a boarding house, so they gave us 72 hours to comply or shut down.
Mm,
So to make some calls and found some advocates and said, nope, they can't shut you down. Here's a message. We'll email them directly.
yeah.
Then they showed up to the town hall and they were all for it. They're helping people out. The law sees them as a single family residence, and
Hmm.
as long as they're following the rules, we got less
Right.
calls than the police chief says we got less calls in that house than the rest of the neighborhood. You want us to start calling out names? We were in the town
Yeah,
hall.
totally. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a good
Nice, man.
feeling. I don't know if you're in it, but we have a WhatsApp group that
Mm.
they assign me. So I'll see them. They have their chores. So every day they'll send chores. So you see them taking care of the house.
Yeah.
Somebody somebody had a wheelchair and they scratched it up. That person's not there anymore. But somebody picked up paint and painted it, sent pictures of it. Somebody goes, "Hey,
Nice.
can you send me some caulking here? Because there's some that I want to replace." A lot of these people are craftsmen that know it, so
Right.
they'll take care of
That's
the house.
awesome.
Yeah, I love it because it's we did a real good job in the rehab, and they
Yeah.
love it. They're appreciative to have that. And I didn't skip on the beds. They're memory foam beds,
Hmm.
box mattress in a box, but good qualities, and they all love it. Say, man, it's the best bed I slept in all my life.
That's awesome. I
Yeah,
love it,
so
man. That's great. You put out the good product and they take care of it. And so it's a win-win.
yeah. Another thing you mentioned earlier was you said you have a bunch of sub two students working with you.
I do.
How's that work? Are they all members? Or is it a free group or?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. It's just one of our funnels for lead gen, right? And so when we first got started, my partner Scott and I, he was funding all of the like the virtual assistants that we were using. And
Mhm.
so they would do the cold calls, they'd send me the leads, and then I'd lock them up and sell them, and we just keep moving that way. And so it got to the point where we had a lot of turnover, where I'm spending an hour twice a week, like auditing these cold callers and making sure the script is good and they're fitting kind of our culture and what we want. Because when they come out of the box from these companies, it's like a 15-page document, right? And they're just interrogating these sellers. And I don't want that. Like it's just not a good vibe for anybody. And I told them several times, I was like, dude, if you talk to me like that, I'd hang up on you too. And so we'd spend all this time like nurturing them to get to the point where they would fit what we wanted as far as building rapport and all that kind of stuff. But they'd either leave or they'd get let go for some reason. And so I'm like having to constantly start from square one. And then just from the cost that we were spending compared to the quality of the leads, it just wasn't there. And so we made a pivot about a year ago to kind of go towards this appointment setter model where we can bring in newer folks that are motivated to make calls, but they don't know how to find the leads. They don't have the money to skip trace. They don't have a dialer or any of that stuff. Like I can provide all that, all the systems and processes to them. They're just leveraging their time, which if you want to get into this business, you're going to have to put up some time. That's just the way it is. And so they'll make the phone calls. Once somebody raises their hand is interested in selling, they'll set an appointment for me. I'll come in, build rapport, pitch terms if possible. We'll get the deal locked up and I'll kind of hold their hand through the escrow process so they can see what attorneys we like to use, what title companies we like to use, depending on the states we're doing deals in, the paperwork side, how to find buyers, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of shorten that timeline that took me 7 months. We can shorten it down to like less than a month for them, and then I just pay them a higher rate of commission on the back end. And so from a cost perspective, it's probably around the same as far as like cost per contract compared to using the VAs to the appointment setters. But I'm helping new people close deals, teaching them along the way, and then we're still getting decent pipeline of deals, and I'm not paying hourly, I'm just paying commission, right? And so my overhead's really low. And so it's like a great value exchange. I basically built it that way because I wish I would have joined a team sooner. There's only my only regret as when getting involved is that I tried to do it myself for too long. And I definitely would have shortened my time, my own timeline to get a deal done if I would have had somebody looking over my shoulder telling me that this is a deal, this is not a deal, this is why, and like coaching me along. And so I'm happy to do that for newer folks. Um, so they can just get into this industry faster and have some success. Then obviously it benefits me as well because now we have a solid pipeline of leads that are coming through, that I don't have to be the guy getting kicked in the teeth for the initial cold calls. I'm actually talking to sellers that want to sell or have a unique problem that I can solve with creative finance.
That's great, Adam. Do you just look for people on the Facebook group and see who's looking for help, or do you put in a question, say, "Hey, help me," or
Yeah, so I've only done it. I've only made one large post once in within sub two and then within the like the creative finance group, and I got absolutely blown up. It was like 500 people reached out to me, and
wow.
I basically said like, "Hey, I'm looking to add some people to my team. If you want to learn while you earn, reach out and let's see if we're a good fit." And I was a fool and didn't put any sort of like time parameters on my Calendly. So from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for 5 days in a row, every 30 minutes was full of talking to new people, which I got my script dialed, like how to explain the position. But like I could say it in 5 minutes and they're like, I'll be like, all right, so any questions? And they're like, no, absolutely. Like you just exploded all over me with all this information. And so like, but a lot would want to like link up and start doing it. And so obviously there's some attrition, right? Everybody's not built for the phone or
Mhm.
people aren't willing to put in the time to get to that success. And so there's some give and take there, right? Compared to paying somebody hourly that's going to guaranteed work on the leads, but the quality might not be there. So it's like it's kind of a give and take. No process is perfect, but we've definitely closed deals. We've got some really great deals through that system. We were able to get people their first deal done, and it's been a great additional funnel for us from our lead gen.
Awesome, Adam. And that's great because a lot of these people are already they're basically filtered because they're either in the free group or in sub two, so it's something they want to do
Yeah,
or they're considering and they've taken the action to actually start by joining the group,
right.
asking the questions and scheduling the call with you, which is a lot of people get stuck at dreaming. They don't ever take the
Yeah,
step to draw to start. And then
totally.
yeah, so you started and you're the process where you're starting to own your time. Once you get that W-2, you'll be owning it more.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I'm really excited about what we're gonna be able to do with all that extra time and growth. And so we're looking at a couple business acquisitions to vertically integrate our flips and continue to build that space, really push this sober stuff. And then also I own a coffee shop as well. So just stabilizing that and growing that business as well. And so there's a lot of stuff that I want to be involved in. It's just buying that time back, right? And so once I have that time available, we can really just kind of shoot for the moon.
Awesome, dude. You're a very good example. I like it.
I appreciate it.
What do you need for funding now for your flips and for your sub two properties, sober living,
Yeah,
building besides
totally.
traditional?
Yeah, I mean, 99% of our deals are funded with private money, either private money lenders or private money partners. I don't like working with hard money, to be honest. It's just the process is slow. Everybody overpromises and underdelivers, and so it's a heck of a lot easier. Even if it costs more money, I would rather use a PML, to be honest, just for the speed of capital and knowing that we can get the deal done rather than this thing needs to be underwritten 17 times and still not close. I lost too many deals in the last year or so, like major six-figure flips because hard money just could not perform. And
Wow,
so PML and PMP is really what we focus on and building those relationships to just find the right opportunity for them. I kind of like to think of it as just like a roster on a baseball team, right? And so everybody has their own unique skill sets or the type of return that they're looking for, the type of timeline that they're okay investing. And so when an opportunity comes to the table, I can kind of build that team and put them in place. We're not syndicating these houses. It's typically like one or two people on a house. And especially with the subtail model, it's generally only one. I only need them for the rehab because we're able to take over that loan sub two on the for the acquisition. And so we either pay a high rate of return from our PML or we'll do PMP partnerships where I bring the deal, I bring the crew, I bring the skill set as far as like project management. You bring the money. Once we finish the flip, you get all of your principal back and then half of the profits. And now we're partners, so you can add that flip to your resume of flips that you did, even though you never touched the house. And so that's typically what we're doing and what we're always looking for more relationships like that, make win-win scenarios, whether it be on the flip side or in the long-term holds. Happy to give up equity in some of these sober living houses if our goals align and it just makes sense to do that. And so that's a big proponent for PML and PMP relationships for sure.
fantastic. I haven't used any private money partners, so I assume you've already used a couple.
Yeah, we've done a few. Actually, the flip that we're selling tomorrow was one where he's actually in the Gator community. He funded the purchase of the house. We funded the rehab. And then we're just gonna obviously everybody gets made whole at closing, and then the profit that's left will split evenly between each other. And so that was the first flip that he got to be a part of. Kind of see the whole process, how we find our crews, how we plan everything, get it over the finish line. There was a lot of delays on this one, unfortunately, but it's just part of it. And honestly, it's probably for the better. So it's not a super duper home run deal on his first one to kind of get a little greedy, I guess, or spoiled for
Yeah,
like a
well,
beautiful
for
one.
sure.
But I mean,
Yeah,
it was a good reno. We have a buyer, they're happy. We're closing. He's getting his cash back. We'll work the books and get everybody paid out. And so we've done it a few times in the past and that's been a great relationship. Obviously, I'm giving up more of the equity that way, but I also don't have to bring any capital of my own. I'm just bringing my skill set and the deals to the table. And I honestly like that better than the PML route because we get to build that relationship and kind of help people along the way. Similar to the callers, right? Like I'm not making these guys sign anything to stay with me long term. You're providing me value by putting up your time. I'm providing you value for showing you how to get these deals done. If you get to the point where you're like, "Hey Adam, I don't want to call for you. I'm going to go do it myself." Amazing, like I'm happy that I can be a step on your journey, right? Like as you figure this out, maybe we can do more business in the future. And I feel the same way with my PMPs on flips. Like I get a kind of again a learn while you earn situation, show you the path on how we work these deals. And if you get to the point where you're comfortable enough, you want to go do them yourself, like awesome. There's no hard feelings there. I mean, it was a beneficial relationship the whole way through.
sweet. So I guess the advantage of a PMP over a hard money loan is hard money loan, they're going to be kind of wanting a payment every month, and PMP understands they're not going to be handing you every month. They know they're
Right.
going to wait to the process, to the business, the house either closes,
Yep.
sells, or refinances before they get paid out. But they
Right.
also get to learn.
Yeah, and they get equity in the deal too, right? Like our PMLs, depending on the situation and where the money's coming from, if it's liquid capital, I'm still cutting them a check monthly, just like I would a hard money loan. But the beauty is the speed, really, right? Like if I was to say, like reach out to my buddy Bob and say, hey Bob, I need 200 grand by Friday, a hard money lender is not going to be able to do that. Like they're going to have to underwrite it. They're going to want, even if I've already done many deals with them and I have a full credibility packet. They cannot move quickly. Where the PML is trusting me as the operator, rather they're not vetting the deal as much. And so if they have trust in me to get the deal done, then they're gonna be able to fund me a lot faster. And so if it's liquid capital, they're still getting paid monthly. If it's IRA funds or retirement funds, they can't use that money anyways. We typically will structure it where they don't get paid until the end of the project. But that's still just a PML, right? They're not a partner on the deal. They're just making interest, which means they don't have any risk. So they're guaranteed a high rate of return. So that's beneficial for some. And then others, the cash on cash return is much higher from a PMP scenario because they are putting up the money. I'm not making payments to them during the house renovation. Then once we sell, they get their profit. But there is a potential for loss. If the floor falls out of the market and I can't sell this house, like we're partners on this. So there is some inherent risk there. But I'm typically not bringing in a PMP unless I know it's going to be like an amazing deal, especially now that we're only focusing on creative flips where I can have a lot more margin on these deals with needing less capital to get them done. That's where I really like to do that PMP model.
Okay. And I assume a PMP, if the worst case scenario doesn't sell, you can't refinance it as you guys own a house. That's
Right.
probably going to cash flow anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I've never got to that point, knock on wood, that we have to
Right.
hold one. But yes, that would be the ideal scenario where we could just refinance out so they could get most of their capital back. And then we would just hold the property long term and rent it one of the various ways that we hold these properties, either sober, long term, midterm, any of them.
Understood. Is there a minimum you have right now for PMP?
It depends on acquisition. For flips, it's probably around 40 grand for a
Okay.
rehab minimum. And then for a sub two deal, like for sober, is probably going to be around 20 to 30 is typically our entry fee. So a little bit lower, but that's probably our floor for rehab funds on these flips is around 40. I think our average is around 85 for a flip, but we can put multiple partners on it if there's enough room. LTV. Obviously, I want to keep everybody protected and have plenty of equity in case of a change in the market. Yeah, I mean, we've got people that run the gambit, and even if it's a little bit smaller than that, depending on the situation, we can obviously have a conversation and see if it's going to be a win-win, depending on the deal.
Adam, you're so well versed at this. I love it.
Thanks, buddy.
What about PMLs? You have a minimum for those?
PMLs, similar pricing. Probably the lowest would be like for just like a quick subtail, or if we were doing a like a wrap, just an entry fee, so probably 15 grand.
Okay.
We're typically paying 10 to 12% interest only. And then yeah, similar like promissory note deed of trust for either one, PMP or PML. So they're protected. But yeah, that's probably be the least amount that I could really utilize and do a deal is 15
Yeah, just so when somebody watches this, they see, hey, I got 15K. Let's take it to
for
Mr.
sure.
Well-versed Adam here.
Love it.
And then I'm gonna send you I have a fund sheet that I've been using for Gator
Okay.
because I'm also in Gator, and I'll show you what funds I have available. I manage the finances for my mother and my mother-in-law, so then I
Hmm.
build their line of credit as well. And
Sure.
then so I have their funds. What is your average flip take usually?
They're typically 3 to 4 months from purchase to sale. And
Okay,
so buy a house in January, I'm normally on the market by the end of March, and then we'll sell within that. Our average days on market's probably in the 40s. It's like a little
awesome,
over a
dude.
month.
Very good
Um,
turnaround.
yeah, so I mean, we obviously have some that have taken a lot longer. I'm working on a really big luxury property right now that's been in the works for about 9 months. There's definitely been some contractor delays and some issues there that made it, which should have already been done, to be honest. But on average is around 3 to 4 months for our flips.
Okay, what's the RV on that luxury?
1.3 million.
Dude, badass. You're getting
Yeah.
out of your comfort level, huh? Moving up a little
Yeah,
bit.
and that was the first subtail that we took down, the creative structure. And so that one, we're looking at multiple six-figure return on that one.
Dude, I love it. That's fantastic. Reason I asked also about the flip duration is when I send you that funding sheet, you'll see some that say credit card because
Sure.
it'll be money sent through like plastic. So
Yeah, yeah.
some of those don't have the interest free anymore. So usually I
Right.
want to do like a lower time period of return.
Yeah, so you're not getting hit with all that interest. Totally.
Yeah, yeah. So dude, that's cool. Hopefully I can fund some of those for you. I'll
Love
send you
it.
that list and anytime it's a live list. So because it's a link to Google Drive, you
Sure.
click on it, say, does he have the money there? Be like, boom, hey, can I borrow this? Like,
Nice.
dude, go for it.
Heck yeah. I love that. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming to the podcast, sharing all this knowledge. I'm learning, taking notes, and
Love
I'll
it.
be dropping a little bit of shorts here and there for you. Hopefully, getting you
Yeah.
some some more funding and some deals too.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
It was fantastic. Do you have any questions for me?
Not really. I mean, what is the biggest need in your business right now? Like how can I bring value to you?
Oh man, I need to find a way to focus.
I hear that.
I'm I'm a solopreneur, and
Yeah,
recently I think in Scottsdale I was like I figured out I'm more like a ball lightning. Anything's
sure.
kind of close, I hit it, grab it, even though I
Yeah,
should
yeah,
be putting a lens to focus on it. Because what I do when I focus on something, I do above average, you know.
sure.
So right now I have so many stuff. Like I got into Turo. I did a little bit of, you said e-commerce as well, a little bit of drop
Mm-hmm.
shipping. The Airbnb, I finally got somebody managing that. And the Silver Living, that's finally getting stabilized, but I still do the finances for that because the operator doesn't know about it.
Sure.
So I manage the books for that. I do my
Yeah.
taxes. They said I manage my mom's finances, her taxes, my mother-in-law's. So I just got so
I
much
got it.
stuff.
A lot of plate spinning. I understand for sure.
Yeah, so I need to find either some partners, somebody I can team up with to do this. I realized that
Yeah.
too at Scottsdale, that instead of me trying to do it by myself, do like Cody Sanchez always talking about, don't build it from scratch, buy something that's already there. Well, let me join a team, buy my way
Yeah.
into that to see where I can bring
For
value.
sure. Yeah, or just delegating tasks is so huge. I mean, I run into that all the time where not even my time is a bottleneck, but just like my brain capacity, right? Like I'm not great on the integrator side. I'm very much the visionary of the business. And so being able to offload those kinds of skill sets to somebody that's better suited for it is ultimate, even if I have to pay them, right? Adding that additional time back to my schedule where I can go back and do more money making activities, then it's going to pay for itself in droves if I just pull the trigger to do that, right? And so delegating those tasks is huge to continue to grow, be efficient.
Yeah, I gotta do that. And what they told us last retreat, if you don't have an assistant,
You
you are
are
the
one.
assistant. And
Yeah, totally.
creative title and escrow, is that open in North Carolina yet? Are
It
you familiar?
is. Yes, it is. Yep.
We're both
Yep.
partners in it.
Absolutely we are. And yeah, so I haven't opened a file with them yet. I've got a couple attorneys that I have really good relationships with, and they always push me to the front of the line. I'm sure I'd get great service there, obviously, because we're partial owners. But the next sub two that comes through our pipeline, for sure, we're gonna run it through them and try to get that rolling, figure out that process so we can have another great resource here in North Carolina to use for sure.
Heck yeah. I got to make sure to add that link in the YouTube description below. Adam, where can people find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube or Instagram. Both are the same. It's just my name. It's the Adam Colburn. You can find me there. I've got my own podcast. It's called the Properties and Pour Overs Podcast. I'm sure I'll have my man Edgar on here soon to hear
There.
about your story. Yeah, you can find me there on YouTube, on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. I'd love to help you any way I can. Or just shoot me a text. My cell is 919-353-4231. Love to help you any way I can.
Awesome. If you got money, send it to him so he can get you some returns back. If you have time, he'll teach you how to make calls and get some properties on and get you your commission off of it and learn. You can see this guy knows what he's talking about. I'm taking notes and looking to get to his level soon.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, let's do it. It's always fun making money with friends.
Heck yeah, dude. You're good people. I appreciate you being here until the next one.
Thanks,
And then
brother.
once y'all finish watching this podcast, you watch the other one that's probably going to be right here.
Love it.
Drop a comment below, and I'll see you on the next podcast.